Good, because we're live. We're doing this. We are here. It is New Comic Book Day Book Club, or NCBDBC.
Something like that. I think you put an
There's
extra
a lot of
letter
letters. There's a lot of letters. I'm not used to the letters.
Yesterday,
talking about old books. So old that they are from Perry, before Perry was born. This is we're talking about 90s comics, talking about Spider-Man, and of course we have our Spider-Man homie here, Mr. Dave Kachoong. How you doing, Dave?
Oh, he's got layers of Spider-Man.
I even have the McFarlane
Spider-Man. Issue 1, yeah.
I'm doing great.
It's so awesome to hang out with you, man. You're like one of the first friends that the girls and I made in this whole community.
Yeah, we love you guys. We're just who was it that said the other day, the chat superstars or something. We just love hanging out and supporting everyone.
It's so much fun just to be able to like check in on your friends and say hi, and yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
and of course, as always, the dark to my light.
Yeah, really lean into that.
Like, lighting wise, we're really doing it tonight.
I always have to adjust my screen to see you properly.
Yeah, I probably should phase down the brightness on my side, but like, you know, I've sort of gone with it, right?
I can do this too. Make myself even darker.
Just take the light down. Yeah, dim. The hair, so amazing.
Yeah, the hair doesn't really sell the creepy look. It look like a Three Stooges.
So we are at episode 68 of New Comic Book Book Club. And it's been a wild ride, especially of late where we've been reading older comics. And there's no plan to really stop reading older comics, even though I think shops are starting to open up all around the country.
New books are coming out.
Yeah, expect a few more older books the next few weeks. We have something very special planned for 69 next week.
Nice.
Right? So expect that to go down. But let's say hello to some people in our chat, people who are here right on the early part of the day here. We got Mr. Chaos and Comics. Yes, it's Wednesday. Welcome.
Yeah, it's weird. Like not going to the shop, we really lose track of the days.
That and being home all day, every day. Right?
Yeah, well, not anymore for me, but.
Not anymore. Chris is doing very well in Bruce Moreau's. Bruce and Stephanie are doing that trivia challenge. Chaos and Comics is killing it there still. Doing well. We got Justa Rican dropping his bald dome right there in the chat. Can't tell what that is. Could be either one.
The fedora.
Backseat drivers in the chat. Thank you. Daymares is rolling over here from our Comic Core show where Alec and I were dropping some good mashups, and he has some hilarious ones. Don't be surprised if Jason decides to create that meme just for you, Daymares. Those are great. The Fox and Hound of Baskerville. You're on it. You are on it. Chris Barrett says, I'm the Cosmic King. I don't know about that. I have no information about that. The Nightmare Before the Christmas Story. There you go. Look at this. You're on fire. Bear Island wants us to hurry up, and he should know better. He should really.
Yeah, and also we were on time.
We were.
Truthfully. We're actually early.
Stonecutter, and I know Stonecutter's a fan of the book we're reading tonight. I know he's a big 90s Spidey fan. We got Kachoong himself, and I put the link to DK Comics and Cosplay's channel down below. You can find Kachoong and Delphia, his significant other, and all the amazing cosplay stuff that they do on their channel. So check that out. Superior Hero Review is in the chat, along with Kevin from 1-2 Comic Talk. Hello to you. Gorilla Todd, one of our two guests from last week, when we were chatting up with him. And we got, TJ, the birthday boy. Cheers to you, TJ. You got some Yaritos over there. And then there's some bevandes down below, too, that Kachoong's been powering. And let's see here. Mark the Cuddy Sark is in here. Hello to Mark. I skipped over Biggie Shack. What's up, Biggie? And the Wednesday poll list. Those guys slay me. They're Instagram champs. I love those guys on IG. They're slaying it. Katie Kaboom, hello to you. Repping the accent. Yeah, they see. Mark respects the Australian accent there for you, Kachoong. Thank you guys all for coming by. So tonight, we were originally going to do Southern Bastards, and I'm sorry for those of you that maybe are really excited for Southern Bastards.
Well, you don't have to apologize. It is strictly my fault.
Well, I'm the one that made the call. So, let's take half and half. How's that?
Yeah, but you told me like long enough ago that I could have read it, but then I just got wrapped up doing D&D stuff.
So the plan was to do the first 2 trades of Southern Bastards because I really do feel like they are a yin and yang, kind of like Alec and I right now. That's a lot of reading, and I didn't want anyone to have to rush the reading. So we've pushed that off a couple more weeks because we got something special for the 69. And so this would probably be 70 back on my channel in 2 weeks, Southern Bastards 1 and 2. So for those of you keeping track at home, that's what we'll be doing. So we did something kind of like I would say closer to my heart in general as far as the youth of my collecting. This was me in middle school. This was me, the books that I was really into in the early 90s. My love for Erik Larsen comes from runs like this when he was in charge of Spider-Man or Amazing Spider-Man as well. He was sort of the follow-up to McFarlane on those runs. So this is issue 15 of Spider-Man. We're doing a one-off, standalone kind of issue in the Spider-Man run. And Larsen wrote and drew this issue. So it's top to bottom Larsen.
Much like McFarlane did the first, 14 and then 16, wrote and did the art on. He was getting ready for Image. So, they ended up kicking him out and farewell.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, even this issue reminded me a ton of the Savage Dragon, which is what Larsen would basically launch at Image when he left after doing the next storyline after this that he did, The Revenge of the Sinister Six, which is another really fun storyline that I enjoy, which I use as my banner on my YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, you do.
I really love that run. I think it's one of those runs that's just so 90s. It's so over the top. Like every character that could possibly appear in that story appears in that. It's just so it's so extra. That whole storyline is extra. Versus this, which I picked this, and I'm sure we'll pick it apart. And there are things that on this read that I was like, maybe I didn't like this as much, but there are other parts that are really meaningful and impactful for me. But definitely this was less of the over-the-top stuff that he did in the Sinister Six run, and there was a little bit more of the heart of Spidey, which I kind of liked in this storyline. Alec, I'm assuming you read this in the 90s. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was buying this series as it came out. I definitely read it back in the day, but I don't think I read it since then. So I didn't really remember it that well.
Sure. And then Kachoong, were you buying it off the shelf then as well?
Yeah, I was, I guess, a little bit older, late teens, and didn't get into comics until I started seeing Aliens and Predator on the shelf in a record store. And then I found an LCS with a friend of mine, and the day I walked in was August of 90, and I saw Spider-Man 1 on the shelf, and so I grabbed it and was immediately drawn to, because I loved Spider-Man anyway as a kid, but never really saw it on a book. So I had to grab it, and I was hooked. I have a love of horror, and the McFarlane Spider-Man brings a real dark kind of edge to it.
Especially those first few stories that you were mentioning, the ones with Hobgoblin and the one with the murder and Wolverine in the woods, and then of course, the Ghost Rider storyline, and then there was the Morbius storyline there at the end of that when Mark McFarlane was finishing up.
And then there's the one with the
Wolverine's the Wolverine one and Wendigo is very dark. The villain in that
the one Sub City, I think it's called.
Yeah. I love the cover before that, which is issue 13 or 12, the one with
13.
The one with the like inverted issue 1 cover where it's the black costume for sure. There's some love going on in the chat. Stonecutter says, yes, super 90s. And then Wednesday Pullet says, 90s Spider books are my favorite comics. There you go. So there's definitely some love going on here for the early 90s. No, TJ, our issue 69 is not going to be faithless again.
But not far off. You're on the right track.
Hint. You got to stick around, though, to find out the truth. Is this the first appearance of Kachoong? No, I think this is maybe the 3rd time you've been on Book Club. Am I right, Dave?
Oh, on Book Club? Yeah, I don't know. I was with Delphia on Dark Red. We read Dark Red.
Right.
Yep.
We
picked that apart like crazy.
Sounds like this show.
Cuddy Sark says, I started reading X-Men in 91 again. Take 45 minutes to read one Claremont issue.
Right.
Yeah. Those Claremont ones have a lot more dialogue, a lot more word boxes for sure. Absolutely. So let's dive into issue 15. This issue, the plot is centering around Spider-Man and Mary Jane having I don't want to say argument, but certainly a marital debate over whether to have a child. And the issue is kind of bookended with moments with Mary Jane with her crazy boobs and hair, right? It's like all boob and hair.
She looks pretty mad.
Right.
Yeah.
But they are kind of having a pretty civil conversation. They yeah.
It's all, she does all boobs and hair back in the 90s. That was it.
It's almost like he tried to there's definitely Larsen art, but there's elements of McFarlane in it. I don't know.
I was gonna say, like, one of the things I was frustrated with about McFarlane was the giant crazy hair, and he definitely mirrors some of that here. It's worse on Mary Jane than on Peter. In fact, I think Peter looks relatively normal compared to the giant curl that McFarlane would give him.
The huge whirlpool of infinity,
right?
McFarlane draws.
He has some pretty intense forearms, though. Pretty buff Peter Parker.
Ripped. Yeah. So the story focuses on Peter questioning whether to have a kid, and wrapped in all of that, he decides that the one person he needs to talk to is a mutant expert because he's concerned about his kid being a mutant. And I will say, even as a, teenager, I guess, reading this for the first time when I bought it off the shelf, I thought, wow, this is pretty heavy stuff. I was an X-Men fan, and to see a character debating whether to have a kid because he thought maybe the kid could be a mutant, that was pretty powerful. The idea that a hero might say, I don't want a kid because the kid could be a mutant. That seemed heady to me in some ways. Do you remember having a reaction to that at all, guys?
I mean, I was a teen. I was very shy. So I know I didn't really have many girlfriends in high school. So when I saw someone that actually had a kid in high school, that was kind of a big thing. Pretty crazy. So even the thought of having a kid itself was just beyond.
I mean, to me, that's the thought is still beyond. But I think, I've got some stuff to say about this issue. But
I know. Hey, there are definitely moments in this that I'm like ready to tear apart. But I'm just talking about the overall discussion here. Because
to answer your question, like, I don't know that he's necessarily saying I don't want a kid that's a mutant. I think the discussion is more like, how would we handle that? And would we, like, that, number one, that would be difficult life for the child, right? And number two, like, Mary Jane's safety is in question a lot about, like, if she can handle giving birth to a mutant, or would the kid die? So, to me, it was less about, like, oh, we don't want a mutant baby because mutants are bad, but it was more about, like, what are the ramifications for having a mutant baby?
No, I didn't mean it like mutants are bad. I meant it like I don't know if we can handle a mutant.
Oh,
like,
sure.
And that being an element of I don't want that. I can't handle it. A mutant is too much. I don't want it.
Yeah. And she's got her career with her acting or whatever and her singing, and he's fighting crime every day in his underwear, as he says. Yeah.
I don't know anyone except Mormons who have underwear that is that big though. Like head to toe underwear.
Having even a babysitter when they're not supposed to reveal that they're even married.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna take the leash off of Alec here. He looks like he's ready to go on this.
No, please keep. I don't want to ruin this show yet.
I'm gonna straight up say, I think Larsen is my second favorite Spider-Man artist. I'm a big Romita senior fan. Like I like his style as well, and that's sort of like that was the style that was like on the pillowcases when I was growing up, and on the jammies, and on the posters you'd hang on your wall, or when you'd buy a game that was a Romita drawing that would be on there. So it was kind of like how I pictured Spider-Man as a kid, was always with Romita in mind. But then when I started buying books, I didn't like McFarlane as much. I liked Larsen, and I really do. I honestly, when I opened the book and I saw this the first page, I was reminded of like why. Like I really love this page.
I've got a controversial statement to make.
Go ahead.
I think that, and I was actually going to make spoilers. I was going to make an artist review series episode on McFarlane, and it was going to kind of focus on the fact that the reason why he rose to such popularity was not because he was necessarily this great artist, but because he reinvented how Spider-Man was drawn. If you look at if you look at the first 297 issues of Spider-Man, they're all drawn pretty much the same.
Right. In fact, I saw an article about how Romita was trying to mirror some of what Ditko had done.
Right. And so there was like very much, it seemed like a style guide of like, this is how Spider-Man is drawn. These are the poses you use. This is how you lay out the page. And all of a sudden, McFarlane came around and had spaghetti webbing and these crazy poses that are totally inhuman. And it made it much more dynamic. So having said that, I think Larsen is pretty much like in that school of McFarlane, where
Definitely.
Like McFarlane invented it, but I think Larsen is a better version of it.
And for me, it's funny that you'd say that, because I felt the same way about the relationship between Ditko and Romita. Whereas, Ditko invented it, but for me, Romita perfected it.
Oh, I would be hard pressed. I would be hard pressed for anyone to like argue that Ditko was a better all around artist than Romita. I think Romita is just he took what Ditko did and just perfected it. He made it like he's much better for my money, at least.
What about you, Dave? How do you feel about all these artists? For obviously, you're a huge Spider-Man fan. Where do you fall on the rankings?
Yeah, I mean, so it's hard for me to give up my emotional attachment to McFarlane Spider-Man. It was the first Spider-Man I saw on a page, and for those first 14 issues, that's all I knew. I didn't read any other Spider-Man comics until later on. Larsen, therefore, was the second artist of Spider-Man I saw.
He would always seem to follow McFarlane. Like McFarlane would finish a run and then Larsen would come in.
Yeah.
Right?
So this issue for me, it kind of was like, we're bringing mutants into this. What's going on? Where's the horror? I was kind of disappointed, but
sure.
That's kind of aside from the art. But I thought he did a good job, and that's why I mentioned earlier that he kind of took elements of what McFarlane had done, and it seemed like they were working together in the background anyway on Amazing Spider-Man, and then obviously into Image. But then when I look back at the older Spider-Mans, I love Ditko, and I think you're right as far as Romita taking that and taking it up a step. And I mean, his corner art, Romita's corner art, went from, what was it? So he did the interiors from like the late 30s, Romita, but Ditko's corner was for another 10 or 11 issues until it changed to Romita's corner for the full body pose, of Spider-Man standing. And his corner art remained on Spider-Man until like issue 200, like 180, 160 issues or something. So I think that says a lot as far as Romita's influence on Amazing Spider-Man. But definitely it's hard to get rid of that attachment, that emotional attachment to McFarlane Spider-Man. But before that, I love Spider-Man, and it's because of the TV show from the 70s, and which was just crazy bad. and then the animated series in the cartoons on Saturdays.
I know Reggie Collects often mentions Bagley in the same breath as well, because then Bagley came in after Larsen and had an incredibly long run, and of course did Ultimate Spider-Man, where he did this amazing run there. And I feel like he left a huge imprint as well. But by then I was getting away from Spider-Man and getting away from reading it, so I don't have that much of a connection to it until I started rereading Ultimate Spider-Man.
And he too draws Spider-Man really weird.
He draws him much skinnier, much more elongated.
Yeah.
Which definitely makes sense for Ultimate because he's a teenager.
Well, it feels like a progression, right? McFarlane, where he's like ripped, and then you get a little bit more gangly with Larsen, and then you end up with Bagley at the far end, right?
Right.
So, anyways, the first splash page, it's probably more to do almost with the color work. I just love this page. This panel, I think, is just really, I don't know. It's just really the lighting. I dig the downward angle where he's flying down at us, and we're looking up from the city streets. The moon in the background. You still get the spindly McFarlane webbing.
Yep.
This page definitely is. There's a nostalgia element that some people might not have for this book. When I look at that page and I'm just like, I'm a teen again. Like I'm right back there.
And there's Parker's, his forearms there, and his eyebrows.
He's like Popeye.
Or her hair. Popeye. Yeah, she's got her hair going. So you start with him flying through the city, and then it cuts back to their argument real quick, where you get a couple of pages of them debating about having kids and him deciding, I need to go find Hank McCoy, because Hank's going to be the one to tell me if this is crazy. What am I really dealing with? Then you get a one-page look at the villain for the issue, or one of the villains for the issue, as these doctors and nurses are looking at something in a bed, and then it wakes up, knocks both of them senseless, and vanishes down the hallway, and we don't see it again for quite a while. And you get Beast. This is my least favorite portion of this book. Beast.
It's so out of place and useless.
It's so bad. And this woman is so straight out of Savage Dragon.
Yeah.
With her lingerie outfit and her giant hair. And she's battling Beast because apparently Beast was at a symposium about mutant rights. And she was clearly a Magneto fan. She wants mutant superiority. Beast was giving a slightly different speech. And they just have what I think is an entirely too long and ridiculous fight sequence that goes 1, 2, 3,
quite a few.
4,
because her
5,
partner,
6. It's like six full pages of this book.
Her partner lasts 2 panels. That's his full appearance.
Oh, I forgot that guy. Yeah, there's
Master
another guy.
Well, you forgot that guy because he's introduced as he's getting punched. Like you do not. I went back and looked twice at the previous pages to make sure he is not introduced in this book until Beast says, "Oh, and I haven't forgotten about you, Master Blaster." And it's like, what do you mean you haven't forgotten about him? I didn't know he existed in this room.
Yeah, I don't even see him on the first splash page.
He says, "Why?" And then he says, "Ugh."
Yeah,
And that's it.
It is mind-boggling the fact that this guy shows up and that Beast is going after him.
Yeah.
And I looked up. I tried to find this guy's Powerhouse and Master Blaster. There's such famous villains that they're not even on Key Collector, so they must not really exist.
So you're saying that this issue we're highlighting has 2 key first appearances.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, apparently they do.
Right, Comic Tom.
I think they're in
swag for tonight. Clearly,
Ultimate Spider-Man. I believe they're in some story in there as well.
Oh, really?
But so Powerhouse, that lady, there is another Powerhouse, and I think it's in Nova story with Nova, and it's a guy, and he also absorbs powers like Rogue. I mean, her powers just seem like Rogue, taking the power, kind of the power of the strength from the character that they're fighting. But
and
they don't last
to get
long.
Back at them with her fist or something. So this is my least favorite portion, and sadly it takes 6 pages to get through. I think it could have easily been done in 1 or 2, and sadly it takes up a lot. I don't mind the banter, and there's a couple of obviously one of the things I've always loved about Larsen is he does action well, and there's some great people getting beat and screaming.
It's really funny though, because I talked about how he is very much in that school of McFarlane. And
right.
If you look at all these artists of this era, like McFarlane, Liefeld, Larsen, these page layouts and these kind of poses and stuff are all the same. Like that shot of someone being punched into the foreground.
Oh, totally.
And these really scratchy looking diagonal panels. This looks like a Youngblood issue. It's crazy.
I will say these 2 are the only pages that I really like in this story, this bit right here, because they overlap each other in kind of fun ways where you just get a quick you get a quick close up, you get his screaming face, a little bit of action. So, but for the most part, yeah. And there's one, God, is it in this bit? There's one where I was like, oh yeah, oh my God, I'm gonna blow myself up for this one. Sorry, guys. I took me so long to figure out what was going on with Beast right here. I don't know if he's teabagging himself. It took me a while to realize he's not teabagging.
Right?
That's his butt.
Yeah.
His
legs are his knees are up.
Butt. Yeah. It's all blue, right? The underwear's blue. The guy is blue.
He certainly looks like he blew himself in that panel.
Yeah, it's quite a moment he's having there, and I was like, okay, wait, I'm lost in this drawing. I don't know that you really needed to put him in that pose for that moment. I don't know that it was needed.
Her magic does look kind of cool. It's got that Kirby Crackle kind of look.
Right. So were I the editor, I would have probably told him to cut that story down by half and give more to the next 2 pages, because I really do like the next 2 pages.
Well, and also, you mentioned the introduction of the quote villain for the issue, who doesn't get that villain's weight isn't felt because he's introduced for 1 panel and then he just suddenly shows up again. If they'd taken those 6 panels to introduce that villain as terrorizing the city or anything, then maybe it would have felt more impactful.
Yeah, I think if they'd given him more of a spotlight and given these 2 other villains a little less of a spotlight, I think it would have been a more functional issue. I also think we could have done with more rooftop chatter between the 2 characters, which is, for me, the heart of the issue, the stuff that I like the most.
Yeah, I think Marvel nowadays would take the risk of having a full issue of their conversation.
Exactly.
But Marvel in the 90s, they couldn't have done that and gotten away with it.
Well, and it reminded me of like, so there was an issue of Daredevil recently, maybe 3-4 issues back, where the cover was like a diner, right? And like the cups at the diner with coffee in them, and then like Daredevil's bloody fist and a police badge. And it was because half the issue was just Matt Murdock and this police detective sitting in a diner discussing whether he was going to get arrested for all of his nighttime activities.
Yeah. And
it was so powerful. And I felt like this issue was the 90s version of that.
It's like, oh, you get 2 pages of someone talking about something that matters instead of like 18 pages of that, which would have been a really interesting read possibly. But
well, that was my favorite part of that Daredevil issue, was just the discussion. They gave it a full like 5 pages, 6 pages of that issue. Just 2 guys sitting in a diner having coffee, and the tension was real because they'd set it up for so many issues.
right.
So I love these pages. Sadly, they're only 2 pages long, and it's Beast being this
counselor.
I like the character of Beast. He's being a bit of a prick, and he's basically just saying, he's giving all the scientific evidence of possible options of what could happen were Peter to have a child. And I mean, it's dark. He
says, if, I'd be lying if I said there's anything less than 85% chance of some kind of complication. That's a pretty high chance.
Right?
Also, you have no science to back that up, Beast. You pulled that number out of your butt.
You don't know his research. You don't know his research.
Like
he
maybe
a handicapped infant, a deformed one, a mutant, a stillborn, a child, the death of your wife. He's very like bedside manner fail. Right?
Well, he's not a doctor, he's a scientist.
And Spider-Man's still
he does probably have a doctorate.
A bit playful and kind of matter of fact. He's like, I wonder if people have kids at all.
Yeah.
So I love these 2 pages. I like the back and forth and the realities of what Peter is kind of dealing with. Yeah, Beast ran the numbers, Comic Head. Thank you for coming by. Sorry I didn't say hello to Comic Head. Congrats on hitting 1K. I know he had a celebration recently for that.
Yeah, man.
Aggressively relaxing and 2 Gun Pedro. Pew pew. And did I miss anybody else? I said hello to Gore, I believe. Hello to you, Gore Vidal, who's been dropping some great information about various Spider-Man versions through the years. And Mark the Cuddy Sark, hello to you. I think we said hello earlier. So for me, like, I like this. I just wish they'd cut down that fight with the random 2 villains and added to this discussion on the roof.
Because we're already at the Staples by this point.
Right?
Middle of the book.
And it directly ends with them looking at each other, which I kind of like the panel, the final moment there of like, all right, got to be superheroes again.
And they're so like casual about seeing a giant 18-wheeler crash in front of them too. It's funny.
Right.
They're like, oh, well, would you look at that?
I guess it's Thursday. Right. Which I like the joke of it, where it's like, yeah, this is what we deal with every day.
And then the next page is pretty cool.
Another great splash page with the moon in the background. And Larsen just slays it.
Although Peter's legs are
that
very,
leg
very, very broken.
The leg is quite impressive. He's flexible.
Yeah, that right leg. What's going on?
Yeah,
right?
Like that is detached from the hip.
So they end up battling this sort of like zombie sludge beast thing that is clearly supposed to be the creature we saw at the beginning. It doesn't really speak to them. They just kind of go round and round with it. And again, it's a battle that lasts quite a while. I think 5-6 pages. Ending with like the ground breaking under the beast and falling into the sewer. Sorry, the creature, not actually Beast. And then Beast following them down into the water, down below.
Yeah.
I love the onomatopoeia. I think they do a great job of these sounds. I always like Larsen's sound effects.
Plenty of those.
He's big on them. Very big on the fighting sounds. Got your thwips.
Just going back a second. I really like this bit.
Blow you up here. There you go.
If it'll focus. His word bubble's upside down.
Yeah, because he's falling upside down. I like that.
Which, like, it's funny, but I feel like Spider-Man's upside down all the time. Why suddenly do you put that one upside down?
Aggressively says Beast has 6 PhDs, but how many are from the Xavier quote Institute? Those credits don't transfer. There you go. Sorry. So they end up down in the sewers battling this beast. Sorry, I keep doing that. This creature. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Beast can't hold his own all through this issue.
No.
The running joke of the issue is almost that, like, Hank can't handle it. He can't cut it in Spidey's world. He gets knocked on his butt constantly, or apparently teabags himself and flipping through the air.
He goes in hard every time too, though.
He does. He just barrels in there and then gets launched back out again. And it sort of, the sequence comes to a classically Spider-Man moment of near drowning, which I feel like is a theme with Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Near drowning is kind of a thing.
And then he's having this full-on conversation with himself.
Yeah, so weird.
Really in-depth conversation.
About his parents.
So this is one of the things that bothered me the most about this issue.
Really? Wow. I would put this lesser than the woman in the G-string for sure.
Oh, well, I mean, so it goes back to the first page, which you mentioned, which does like open up visually impressively. But I have 2 huge problems with it.
The first page?
Yes.
Okay.
And it goes back to where we're at in the story. So I'll get back there.
Sure.
The first thing is that it's one page that doesn't really set up the story at all. It takes you like in media res into him swinging through the city, going to find Beast, and then it cuts back to why he's doing that. Like, it doesn't serve a purpose other than the editor probably saying, we can't start with him having a conversation with Mary Jane. You have to start with a shot of Spider-Man. And number 2, I don't remember really like when caption bubble, like panels switched over from thought bubbles. But I think like such a simple visual change makes things feel so differently. Because if he were saying this as a narration, it wouldn't have bothered me. But nobody thinks like this
While they're drowning.
No, on the first, while they're drowning too. But that's where I'm getting. That's where I'm getting. But on the first page where he says, "Nice night for slinging. Wish I could enjoy it more, but right now I'm on a mission, and that mission is to find the Beast." No one thinks to themselves that way. But if he were telling this story in captions, it would be fine, I guess. But it's just like, oh, you sound like a crazy person, Peter. if you're actually like narrating your life like this in your own head.
I've never even thought of the difference. This is hilarious. I've never even taken the time to contemplate the difference between the word bubble and the narration box like this.
But similarly,
this is why people tune into this show.
Similarly, while he's drowning, he's having this like whole conversation with himself. It's not, oh my God, I'm never going to see Mary Jane again. Like, oh my God, like this might, like, I have to get at, like, there's no panic. It's very, like self-reflective. It's very much like, oh, how sad I'm going to die here. I can't believe these are my last moments. You know,
here we go again.
I can't believe this is happening like this. It's buck wild. Like absolute madness.
So are you saying, were they to change the thought bubbles at the beginning into narration boxes and the same here at the end, it would have been a huge difference?
Well, right, because then it's like reflecting on the moment. It's not you thinking that in the moment.
In the moment, yeah. Wow, that's cool, man.
Well,
I
it
dig
does.
this, man.
It does turn to narration boxes.
It
When
does
Right.
right there at the end, which
he's like
probably even points out the error more dramatically.
yeah, because I guess that's him just standing there alone,
Yeah.
dead.
So, yeah, that really, I mean, the whole like 6-page fight and the guy appearing out of nowhere, that was like, that made me just like, my brain broke a little bit. But the whole thought bubble thing, I was just like, why did you write this way? This doesn't like.
That's
like
gonna stick with me, I tell ya.
cheesy comic dialogue of an era I can get behind and I can excuse, but like it's so bizarre to me to make that choice of him thinking like that. But
He just says, I've had these conversations myself. I don't see the problem.
maybe my brain is just too scattered because like I can't concentrate on a thought for more than 2 seconds, so I couldn't never have it.
And I forced at the last second Alec to read a 90s comic. So this is going to push this show to a new plateau.
I mean, it's one thing to think like that if you're laying in bed. Like he's not really
Right.
laying in bed. He's like choking underwater.
Yeah.
He would be thinking at least this hurts or something.
Well, that's the first. So the first page, the first of those panels, he says, I can't get any leverage. And the only guy that could help me is sucking ants out of his pillow. This guy's fingers have me pinned like a vice around my neck. This might be the end. That, I guess, I could see as a thought bubble versus the next bit where it says, I climb into these tides almost every day and face the improbable odds. It doesn't occur to me that as it should, that one day I might not make it home. Mary Jane always tells me to be more careful. Mary Jane. I never thought it would end like this. Poor Mary Jane will find out about my death and be hounded by the press. My passing will devastate her. This is the life I've chosen for myself. For my wife. For any kids we'd ever have. My parents died, risking their lives when I was too young to remember. I grew up as a lonely boy, forever denied their love, different from other little boys, alone. And that's that whole like mental process. I nailed that, I think, actually.
That's pretty good. Thunderhouse Design says, I think Scott McCloud is a good segment from understanding comics about thought bubbles versus caption boxes.
Ooh.
Yeah, everything I know about comics comes from either Scott McCloud or David Mazzucchelli. So, yeah, basically I just regurgitate understanding comics and anything I say that sounds intelligent.
Nice.
Who's he referencing that's sucking ants out of a pillow?
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. Is that Beast he's talking about? Who's going to say?
He's talking about Beast. I just don't know what sucking ants out of his pillow means.
No.
Nobody knows?
Maybe that means he's unconscious?
Because sawing logs, right, makes way more sense than sucking ants out of a pillow. I don't know what that means. That's hilarious.
It could be hard. Maybe that's how it feels when you're drowning.
So I will also say that the next bit I love. I don't know that I love how well they did it, but I love the idea that the reveal is the little creature that's drowning Peter has parents, and the parents call it, and they say somehow they stumble upon it here in the sewer.
Yeah, in the sewer.
Right.
Joey, is that you? And then it comes running over to them and shrinks back to being the child that it really is. This creature is a mutant baby. And
ironically,
Peter comes to realize that the thing he's been fighting in the streets of Beast is not actually a monster so much as a mutant out of control of its abilities.
So I know like people have criticized me before for like Monday morning quarterbacking comic books and stuff, but don't you think a better version of this issue would be Peter going to meet Beast, cut out the whole first fight,
right?
This kid escapes the hospital. Their parents come to, like, they somehow come across them or they come for help. And they're trying to find this kid who's a mutant while having this discussion about whether or not Peter should have a kid.
Wait, when does that, you're saying you just sort of splice in the argument?
like while they're hunting down this, like trying to track him down, following his tracks, following this trail of destruction this kid is leaving, flying through the city, they're having this conversation for 10 pages of the issue about whether or not they should have a kid. And then it culminates in this whole fight where then the parents come and calm him down, and they see Peter then. So like, I
see what you're doing as far as
it takes this arc of Peter kind of saying, oh, I want kids. Then he sees this and it makes him doubt it. But then he sees the kids' parents and how much he still loves them and they love him. And that brings him back to like, because he says something at the end, like, I'll love the kid no matter what. And so that would give him like that arc of doubt to assuredness. I don't know. I just think that would be a much more interesting issue than this, where it felt like really all over the place at hodgepodge.
I could see a little bit of what you're saying for sure. And I would love an editor's touch here. Absolutely. To figure this out. I love the reveal that it's a kid. And I wouldn't want to rob that by sticking it at the beginning. I would prefer that they're chasing a creature across the city, not knowing and then realizing. Do you know what I mean? I like this reveal that it's a kid, that that a mutant's power could be so significant that you wouldn't know that it was a child, that the parents, that a neglectful set of parents could have such a traumatic creature.
That's fair, but do you think that reveal needs to come at the end, or could they be tracked? Really? You don't think it could come in the middle?
I think you could have, because the whole point, I like the layout of the debate between Beast and Spider-Man works well with Beast being so analytical about all the math and science of it. And then the reveal makes you realize that they're not counting one significant piece of data, which is how you feel about your kid.
Right.
But that works with the reveal at the end for me.
So I guess what I'm saying is that Beast and Spider-Man can start to have this conversation because they don't know it's a kid when they first started tracking it.
Right.
And then you get the reveal that, oh, it's somebody's kid. And then Spider-Man's like, see, I'm right. Like, if it's a mutant, it's just terrible and dangerous and the worst. And then you see that the parents still care for the kid. And then Spider-Man's like, oh, maybe I wasn't right. So you get like kind of a double reveal. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
That's like a bit of a twist at the end.
For what?
You're overthinking something? Come on.
Yeah.
And what I like also about the issue too is the final page. First
Jane, just waiting sadly in the sexiest lingerie.
This is how women, when they're upset with their husband, just wait around, right? That's doesn't everybody deal with that?
It's not like, oh, I decided I want to have a kid, so I'm going to try to get you going. It's like, no, I'm an actress. I can't have a kid yet, but we should still get down to clown.
Right. But I like the idea that they despite all of this, they come to the conclusion independently, the two of them, that this is not the time. They're not ready. I like that. It doesn't end with like, yeah, let's have a kid. It's definitely like, we're really not ready.
So I don't know if you noticed because of Mary Jane, but where is it? There we go. Look under his arms.
He's got the web.
Very often, the web's under the arms.
But he also doesn't have that the rest of the issue, does he?
No, he doesn't.
It just magically appeared at the end.
Is that a nod to Ditko, and the page before?
No, he does. Here's the page. He's got it right.
Oh, he does?
Right there.
Oh yeah, you can see a little bit.
Oh yeah, he does.
I haven't searched for it, so it's possible it's not on any other page anywhere.
Don't you think Beast looks like Submariner there? Totally does.
He's got the super spiky Wolverine hair going.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another one. There he is right there.
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's just because the angles that Larsen uses are always like above the shoulder, not below the shoulder. So you cut out, there's only a few where you actually include the webbing armpit as like part of the frame. The angle usually precludes his ability to include it. So like that.
When he draws Beast, it's either above or below the grundle.
Very well done. Very well played. So I will say straight up, like this is I have a soft spot for this run, this storyline. I just really like this because of where I was as a teen when I read it. So there's a place for it in my nostalgia. But I can definitely look at it from a point of view that says an editor could have really done some work here and done something useful. But I like the concepts, I like the ideas, and I love the Larsen art enough that I can overlook a lot of that other stuff. Reggie's here. The soldiers in the house.
Cuban gang.
We're talking some 90s Erik Larsen Spider-Man issue 15, brother. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, not quite Bagley.
Not Bagley. We're doing Larsen tonight. So I can look past all of that stuff enough to enjoy the concept here, and I really do like the manner in which they deal with such a heavy issue, which is Peter and Mary Jane's contemplating having a kid, and spending an issue really thinking about the impact of what that could mean for them as characters. I really appreciate it for sure.
Yeah.
So we talked briefly earlier about our favorite Spider-Man artists.
Yeah.
And yours is Larsen, and Kachoong, yours is McFarlane.
I would say Ramita and then Larsen, but yeah.
Okay. You're gonna be real mad at me. It's Marcos Martin.
I knew it would be somebody that I had not mentioned at all. All right. Did he do a run of Spider-Man?
For quite a while, yeah.
Really? Is it ASM or what?
Yep. Amazing. Yep.
I'll have to look this up. I'm gonna get on my Marvel app here and see if I can add those hooks.
So Thunder House, to answer your question, it was number 17 was Larsen's first, after obviously 15.
Right.
16
was the
landscape. Yeah. The landscape issue.
The X-Force crossover, yeah.
The whole issue is this way.
Yep.
So you read it, and it's
sideways.
It's really difficult to read, but it's fun.
Yeah, and I contemplated that Thanos issue as well for tonight. Like that's another great single standalone issue that I think is kind of fun in this run of Spidey books. And I really do enjoy that. I know that Comic Tom and Fire Guy Ryan did an episode just on that issue. It's just really a great tie-in to the Infinity Gauntlet. And then Larsen did the Revenge or Return of the Sinister Six storyline that I really love, that is so ridiculous and so over the top. Yeah, that's one of the issues from that run. Revenge. Yeah, Revenge of the Sinister Six. The final issue has this amazing fold out. It's like everything but every Marvel character but the kitchen sink is included, and I use it as my background on my YouTube channel. I just love it.
And then the Demo Goblin.
That's Bagley, right? Is that Bagley?
I think we're into. Are we into Bagley?
I don't remember. I feel like it was always McFarlane, Larsen, then Bagley, like everywhere in my mind. All right, let me
and then the Spidey Phoenix.
Yeah, love that cover.
That's a cool issue. So I collected this all the way through to 50. It's still probably my most contiguous run on books. I don't have a huge collection, but I stayed loyal even though McFarlane disappeared, and I followed him and collected Spawn. But I kept collecting the Spider-Man series till 50, and then last year Delphia gifted me 51 to keep me
nice. reinvigorated that spark of like, oh no, I need to get the whole run.
Well, and what brought me back into comics this third time 2 years ago was Clayton Crane. I honestly think he's a really amazing Spideyverse, overall arching Spideyverse artist. Yeah, the way he does Venom is pretty amazing.
I know we're wrapping up here, but we have a guest backstage. I want to say a quick happy birthday to TJ.
Yeah.
Hey, TJ, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Do you have a quick favorite Spider-Man artist or two that you want to mention?
John Romita Sr. is my favorite Spider-Man artist.
Yeah. Yay! I agree with TJ.
Best covers of all time. Yeah.
And I'll tell you that 120s run where you get Man Wolf, Punisher, and there's a lot of great art in that.
He's pretty great, but he's no Marcos Martin.
I just added a ton of Marcos Martin to my list there. Erik Larsen is a writer at the level of Terry Moore when it comes to comedic timing. He throws out some Twain, some Allen, some Carlin. Nice. So we're gonna head out of here. We're gonna spend a little time after hours having a drink with Mr. Slab Dragon here, who's celebrating a great birthday and a huge milestone. Expect a celebratory video soon, right, TJ? Sometime next week, maybe.
Hopefully, I want to do it on Alex's channel, so we don't have to arrange a time and place.
I still think it should be on your channel.
Nope, I can't do live.
Alec, do you have anything coming up this next week here on your channel?
Yeah, we got D&D on Sunday.
Woo-woo.
I'm gonna mess with John's character. I'm gonna mess with John's character real bad.
Nice.
I was nerding out so bad.
That was amazing.
And then
still working on my DMing, but I'm getting there.
You're fine.
Kachoong, I know that you and Delphia are struggling with the lack of cons to go and attend. Are you still creating any cosplay?
We're creating ideas. We're always getting inspiration. And I really need to clean up the table where we make the cosplay, and our supplies are kind of in order, but we need some space, and we'll probably get going. Without a con, we're definitely not going to Dragon Con this year.
Sure.
But we'll probably make a few. I have a few ideas, so maybe do a cosplay specific to a homage to a cover.
Nice.
Which could be cool.
That sounds exciting to see.
And I may stream some of my creation. I think that's probably the next step.
Nice.
So people can get bored and watch me Dremel some foam.
And I put the link for Kachoong and Delphia's channel down below in the description. So if you want to subscribe to their channel, you can click down there and get that information. And thank you also, Kachoong, and to Delphia in absentia for joining the Mainframe Comic-Con when Jason and I had a fun discussion with them about cosplay as part of the Mainframe Comic-Con, and that was really great of you to stay up so late for us.
That was fun. That was late, but that was a lot of fun. And we last minute decided we're doing cosplay too.
It was great. And if you guys missed it, definitely check back through the Mainframe Comic-Con stuff. The late night part 2, if I'm not mistaken, was when we had you guys on. So if you can find that at the very end, you find some good cosplay goodness. As for my channel, the only thing I got going is we're working on a breakdown of The Wire. So if you've never watched the great HBO show The Wire, 5 seasons long, but it's only about 12 episodes a season. So you're talking about 60 hours of watching to go, not like some crazy shows where they do 20 episode seasons. Maybe the time to check it out and start watching some of that, because Stay Puff and Fire Guy Ryan and I are going to do several hours of talk centered around the themes, characters, and seasons of The Wire. I'm a crazy fan, and I'm getting wrapped up in rewatching right now. It's consuming me.
Is that on Netflix?
They moved it around, so it was on Hulu just last week, and they've moved it back over to Amazon now. So it's on.
I thought it was only on HBO.
It isn't. No, HBO has it. So if you have HBO, you can definitely watch it. But because it's one of their older shows like Sopranos and 6 Feet Under, they move it around, and so it just moved recently back from Hulu back to Amazon. So I'm watching it on Amazon currently. It just I use that app more, and it keeps track of my previously watched really easily. So
I kept hearing Peter Griffin rave about it, and I figured that was a joke, but I guess
it is honestly. I mean, I talk about the show Lost a lot, but it's probably the second greatest TV show I've ever watched, and it holds up so well for me.
Battlestar. Damers has a great comment. He says, "I think you make a great GM, no matter what John says, Alec."
That's fair. That's fair.
Those Fog Wolves, the Fog Wolves.
Apparently, Gore Vidal says it's also on Roku, so there you go. You can get it there as well. But again, if you've never watched it and you've been putting it off, give it a try. Give one of the first season. I think has 12 or 13 episodes. Give it a try, and I think you'll be quite impressed with how much thought. Just like Alec put a lot of thought into our discussion of this issue, things I had never noticed before. I feel like David Simon puts out just as much thought into that show.
I don't think you should compare me to David Simon. I think that is a disservice to David Simon. Hey, next week, since people have been wondering, for episode number 69, we are going to read Sex Criminals.
So good. Alec has been waiting for this reveal for so long.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited.
Look how excited he is.
This is my excited face.
I'm very excited about that because I know nothing about it, and I actually heard good things. So
it's really fun.
Time to grab a trade. Isn't it an Image $9.99 trade?
Oh, I don't know. I've got the hardcover, the big hard Sex Criminals.
Yep.
Yeah. Or get that digital copy over at Comixology, whatever. If you've never read Sex Criminals, I think it's definitely worth your time. And we're going to dive into that first trade. I've never watched Treme, and I need to get around to it. I don't like music as much as crime stories, so it kind of held me off a little. Like, do I want to listen to jazz in New Orleans or crime stories? Yeah.
This is the only JR I really like.
That is I'm not
great cover.
I'm not a big John Romita Jr. fan, so I definitely understand. It's funny because he's drawn on pretty much every character that I love. The X-Men, the Daredevil, the Spiderman, and I'm always like, please stop.
In my opinion, sometimes he gets lucky, but for the majority of his stuff, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna bounce out of here because it's late, and I don't want to make Alec feel like he has to stay up crazy late. Even though TJ and I are going to talk comics and alcohol for quite a while tonight. Happy birthday again to you, TJ! Congrats on your huge purchase today. I can't wait for the reveal. Kachoong, thank you so much for talking about 90s Spidey with me.
Always great hanging out.
We would have been huge fans back in the day. I wish we could have met in the 90s. Then you were awesome. And then Alec, man, the yin to the yang here. Thank you so much for agreeing to read some 90s faux garbage and have fun with it for us tonight.
It was a fun read for sure.
Yes, Sex Criminals next week, Daymares. So lock and load yourselves, and we will be back on Alec's channel next week for some Sex Criminals. Until then, chillax and never turn your back on.
Don't steal my catchphrase.
I don't remember. Never turn your back on Alec.
That's good.